Hey Fatheads, welcome to another episode of Sharing Our Pairings. This is Sharing Our Pairings episode 103, Spotlight on Blackworks Studio, Black Label Trading Company. I'm your host, John the Cigar Surgeon. Sharing Our Pairings is broadcast live around the world, picked up on the Armed Forces Radio Network. And of course, you can tune in at cigarfederation.com, youtube.com, and now Facebook Live. Thanks to all our listeners everywhere. And of course, our podcast listeners, we haven't forgotten about you. You guys are out there in droves. I see the countries come in all the time. We've got people coming in from all over the place. The Philippines, Israel, Great Britain, Sweden, Norway. Appreciate your tuning in wherever you are in the world. Hope you're staying safe and enjoying the 1 hour of tomfoolery and pairing that we've got. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Trippy Trent. Trippy, what's going on, brother?
Heyo. I'm smoking some Black Label. It's a good day. Smoking a cigar I really like.
It's a good cigar.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, you know, I'm not really a huge Candela fan. I know that Candela has kind of made up the American market for a number of years. And, I find that a lot of the true Candelas, quote-unquote true Candelas that are out there right now, they're not really Candela. They're blended to be something other than a Candela. But this is something very different than sort of what we've seen on the market before.
Yeah, this interestingly uses, like you were saying, a lot of the Candelas these days are made to be a lot stronger. You're not really tasting as much of the Candela as a traditional Candela. But this one, it's just kind of there as an accent, which is kind of nice. It's a good move on James's part, I think. Yeah,
I mean, it's very artisanal. For those who aren't aware, I don't know if you can see that, but it's got strips of Candela in both the cap, and then because we've already lit, you can't see on the closed foot, it has a Candela covering the closed foot. And I've actually watched these being rolled at the Fabrico Veja factory, or Veja Negra, pardon me, Fabrico Veja Negra in Esteli. And it looks like a lot of work because the guy's like cutting strips and rolling them in, and it's very artisanal. And I'm sure that after he did 1,000 cigars, he got very accustomed to it. But I'm sure the first 200 of them, he was cursing James's name when he was rolling them.
Yeah, I mean, putting a wrapper on, or a cap on is not an easy thing to do, and putting two of them on at the same time cannot be very easy.
But it's awesome, and we're talking pre-show that when you first light it up, you really do get a big blast of that Candela flavor, that sort of grassy, earthy, and then it just kind of falls off, and you get this really wonderful peppery, spicy, creamy combo that I kind of associate with Black Label Trading Company and Blackworks, which that's why I like their cigars.
Oh yeah, they've definitely got within the Blackworks brand at least, everything's kind of got a similar feel. Even though they've got, different flavor profiles, they're all kind of within the same realm. Sort of like, like Liga Privada. If you smoke anything that says Liga Privada, it's going to be kind of similar. Mm-hmm. And that's how I feel about Blackworks.
So just to clear it up for our audience who aren't aware, Black Label Trading Company is the company that makes the cigars, founded by James Brown in 2013. They opened a boutique factory, the Fabrico Veja Negra, in Esteli in January of 2015, which was a great move for them. You oftentimes don't see a lot of boutique manufacturers opening up a shop because it's very, very expensive, and it's a lot of investment in both tobacco and everything. So normally a lot of boutiques are rolled out of another factory to save costs. But they did launch in January 2015 and were very successful with it. Now they're doing a bunch of other brands for other people. And then Blackworks Studio is essentially another brand under the Black Label Trading Company banner, and they launched in December of 2015. And really the goal of Blackworks Studio is to come out with ultra boutique, specialized, sort of super secret squirrel stuff that they wouldn't otherwise do under the regular Black Label. So they tend to kind of go out the extremes, and this is certainly a good example of one of the cigars that they launched with, something that's very different from their typical portfolio, and they want to push the envelope of what they can do with a boutique company. So the other thing to mention there is that they're all distributed under Boutiques United. So there's basically distributorship under Boutiques United, which also has 1502, Nomad, Ezra Zion, and
I think there's one more, but I can't remember it.
and it's right on the tip of my brain, and I'm so embarrassed because like I just smoked one the other day, but I can't think of it. It'll come to me. This is what happens when you get older. Your brain just stops functioning properly. At any rate, fantastic cigars. This is the Green Hornet. And if you aren't a older person and didn't watch the awesome series with Bruce Lee back in the 60s, I am just not old enough to have done that, but I did catch him in reruns. This is, of course, the great TV show that was on with Bruce Lee and really was made by Bruce Lee. So this is kind of an homage to that. And sports an Ecuadorian Maduro wrapper, which, love Ecuadorian tobacco. Nicaraguan Habano binder, which that's creamy spice. You'd love that. And then a bunch of Nicaraguan fillers. And I think it's a 5x48. They call it a Robusto, but, it's like I hate anything under a 50 being called a Robusto.
I'd call it a short Churchill.
Short Churchill, Corona Extra,
I wouldn't call it Corona anything.
Fair enough.
At 48.
Fair enough.
But a short Churchill is, 48 is the traditional ring gauge for Churchill.
Right.
So I think, in my opinion, anything that's 48 and shorter can be a short Churchill, whether it's 6.5 or 4.5.
Short Churchill, James. Fix it. It's not a Robusto. What do we know? We just drink and smoke.
Yeah.
Sharing Our Pairings, of course, is brought to you by Gurkha Cigars, makers of the world's finest cigars. Check out the Gurkha Heritage, the Heritage Maduro. They're getting good scores. Talk to your local B&M. They'll hook you up, either with a Heritage or something that fits your palate. They've got a range. They've got a lot of cigars. They'll have something that's right for your palate. And little something I'm rocking tonight is the new hotness, the ring from Black Label Trading Company. I couldn't resist when I saw it get posted on Facebook. I'm a sucker for cigar jewelry.
You sure are. Did you happen to pick up any of the other sterling silver things, the Zycar or the Zippo?
No, I didn't want to push my luck with shipping and customs and all that. But those are both cool things that I could see myself wanting to pick up. And I mean, I've got a bit of a lighter collection going on as well. Of course, they're all empty. They never seem to have butane in them, but I got a bunch.
Of course. Jason Raybuck says he has no sound.
Weird. I blame Jason.
Yeah, it sounds like your sound's working at least. Let me tune in and see if
all the board says we got sound going out and everything is on the up and up, so don't know what the issue.
I just confirmed we definitely have sound on Facebook at least.
Fix your crap, Jason. Stop freaking us out. Jeez, man. Jeez. Anyways, back to the show. We're talking about pairing cigars and beverages, which we do every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. I'm going to kick it off here with questionable choice. I'm not sure where my head was at. Rogue Ale and Spirits. Don't know what I was thinking. I got sucked in. It's got like chocolate and waffles and bonbons and I don't know, all kinds of stuff, and hazelnut. That's a hazelnut in the middle. It is the Rogue Hazelutely Choctabulous. Choctabulous? I can't even say it. It's so strange. But
you have to read the subtitle that's on there too.
Is there a subtitle?
Yeah. Look right under where it says Chocolatarius or whatever.
Oh, Choctabulous. It's a candy bar in a bottle.
There we go.
Yeah, candy bar in a bottle. So I like Rogue. I'm not sure this is necessarily the best choice for the pairing tonight, but I've made my decision and I'm sticking with it. Rogue Ales and Spirits. I know we've featured them many, many times in the show, but I'm going to run through it really quick here for our audience. They started the brew pub that opened in 1988 in Ashland, Oregon. Their mission statement is to brew the finest varietal ales and spirits in the world with an uncompromising devotion to quality and art of brewing. They want to present the finished work with a touch of educational, entertaining mischief. They are dedicated to the rogue in each of us, rogue being capitalized. To remember, it is not simply a matter of profit, but a highly personal work of art. They want to build relationships, not just ales. And they want to be great friends and remember what it's like that's inside. And they want to remember that it's what's inside that counts. A little bit about this tasty beverage. I'm going to hold it up. It's kind of dark and delicious, but it's a combination. It's a combination of their Rogue Chocolate Stout, which I'm actually a big fan of the Rogue Chocolate Stout. And then they blend that together with the Hazelnut Brown Nectar. So kind of combine the two. It's 5.7% ABV, 14.5 degrees Plato, 51 IBUs, which is quite a bit higher than kind of what I was sneaking a taste in there. I'm not really getting the IBUs, probably getting run over by the chocolate. 75.3 AAs and 99 degrees Lovabond. What I love about Rogue is their website is baller. They've got tons of information. All the stuff is there. They also have a recommended food pairing, which is beef and dessert. Those kind of seem like the opposite spectrum to me, but beef and dessert.
Yeah, those seem like complete opposite pairings for me. But, I mean, I've never had that beer, so I can't really speak for it. One thing that I really like about their bottles is the way that they do the food pairing. They just have little icons.
Absolutely.
It's just kind of a cool touch, I think.
So I'm going to hold that up. Our audience can see that at the back. Kind of a cool touch. All the specs are on the bottom there, bottom of the bottle. They got the symbols there. Obviously a cow and a pie. Cool little mission statement on the back. It's cool. I like it. They got good packaging. Got a good website presence. Just hit and miss on some of the Rogues. What can you do?
Yeah, I think their quality is kind of hit or miss. I think they go a little too crazy, and it seems like they kind of get lost in making something weird rather than making something good.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of cool things about them. They also distill. They have an okay whiskey and a pretty good gin.
Yeah, I tried out their whiskey. It's, it's interesting. I mean, you don't really see a lot of breweries go all of a sudden spirits, which is, I dig it.
Yeah. And another cool thing they do, I don't know if they use it in that beer, but in most of their beers, they use a yeast called Pac-Man that's proprietary.
Oh, yeah.
And you can just buy that. You can buy a little vial and pitch it in your homebrew.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, Trippy, what do you got on deck?
I have got from StormBreaker Brewing. I've got their Opacus Oatmeal Stout. It's got a big... I didn't immediately realize what this was, but once they describe it, they say that this is a beer perfect for a cloudy day.
Okay.
And that's a cloud turning into a gorilla and coming to get you.
All right.
Which is cool.
I can dig it.
So StormBreaker Brewing has kind of an interesting story. This guy, they call him Angry Rob, who's apparently not as angry as he used to be. They make that very clear on the website.
Says Little John.
Yeah. But he has worked pretty much every job in the beer industry. And for 4 years, he worked at a brew pub in downtown Portland on Mississippi Avenue called Amnesia.
Okay.
And Amnesia announced that they were going to be closing that brew pub, and all of their production was going to take place at their brand new production-sized facility where they could crank out a lot more beer.
Gotcha.
And he got together with a friend and decided he was going to buy that brew pub and start his own brewery. So that's what they did. And they've only been around since 2013. So this is their Oatmeal Stout. It is 24 IBUs and a very surprising 5% ABV.
Wow.
That's pretty low for a stout.
Especially an oatmeal stout, I'm surprised.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that. But it's got some body to it, even if it doesn't have the alcohol to back it up.
Cool.
So how are your sippies doing there?
Well, like I said earlier, I kind of cheated. I had some sippies before, during, and while the show was on because I'm thirsty and I like beer. And the initial few tastes were way too sweet, like crazy sweet, like candy bar sweet. Which, if I'd read the bottle, I would have gotten that. When I nose it, do you guys have what are those chocolate bonbons that have the crunchy center, the Maltesers? Do you have Maltesers down in the States? It might be called something different.
What are they called? Ferrero Rocher is what they're called here. Like they have a hazelnut in the middle.
Okay, not the Ferrero Rochers, but it's got like a crunchy candy center. I usually get them when I'm at the cinema, and I go through them like they're crazy. And that's what this smells like to me. It's got that milky chocolate with that caramel center. And it was, like I said, when I initially tasted it, it was crazy sweet, like sickeningly, overpoweringly sweet. And I'm not sure if it's because the cigar is kind of pushing back nicely on that with the the creaminess and the pepper from the cigar. But it's growing on me. It's not by far the best rogue I've had. There's a lot of rogues that I prefer. It's certainly drinkable, which sounds terrible when I say it like that, but it's not really doing anything for this pairing. Like, the beer on its own is, I would say, okay. This is probably going to get an untapped rating of 3.5 for me, maybe 3.25. So the beer's fine. But in terms of pairing, it's really not doing anything for the cigar. I mean, it's certainly there in terms of body. It's not being run over by the cigar, but there's just no notes there that are interesting enough to pair off against the cigar. I feel like your choice of an oatmeal stout is probably a much better choice.
Yeah, I feel like this was a pretty good choice. It's got a pretty good body. It doesn't have as much of that viscosity that we've talked about before that I like from a stout. Mm-hmm. But the flavor's there. It tastes like a stout, like a hearty stout. And it's kind of nice that it's not super high ABV because it's kind of refreshing for a stout, which is a little different. I would say it's closer to like an oatmeal stout version of a Guinness, where it's not super heavy, which is nice. I like it. And I think it goes really well with the kind of creamy, spicy notes of the cigar.
And what was the price point of that? It comes in a bomber, right? Yeah,
this is a bomber. I think these are about $4 around here, which is crazy reasonable.
That's crazy reasonable.
And as far as I know, StormBreaker doesn't distribute too far. Obviously, I'm in Portland, so I'm in their hometown. So it's pretty easy to come by here.
All right. Well, that sounds like an easy pickup for four and change for a bomber. Did they distribute? Have you seen any of the smaller bottles, like a 6-pack or cans or anything?
No,
like that?
I've only seen them in bombers and on tap.
I have to, sorry, bit of dead air there. I have to say that I am not usually a huge fan of bombers. I know that it's the least expensive way to distribute because you're obviously your ratio of alcohol to container is it's a cost factor, especially when you're a smaller brewery. But I'm not a fan of bombers because even if it's 5%, I don't, and again because I don't want Fat John to come back. This is 1 pint 6 fluid ounces. I don't want to drink 1 pint 6 fluid ounces in a single session. I want to have a pint. I don't want to have 2 pints. I don't have a pint and a half. I want to have a pint or 3/4 of a pint. So I'm kind of left with the decision: do I pitch it, which it's kind of an expensive decision to pitch it, or do I bottle it, like put a cap in it and try and make it last to the next day, which is kind of a mixed bag. Like that.
That almost never works. Yeah, and like when you're drinking something like over here, I have the bottle from a couple weeks ago. Still, the Imperial Biscotti break that's like 11.5% in a bomber.
Beast.
That's just a lot of heavy beer to drink in one sitting. I mean, for guys like you and me who don't drink a bunch of beer. I mean, I'll have one or two beers, but I don't like having like, I don't have nights where I have like 7 beers. That's just
I'm not a 7. That's right. I'm the same way. I'm not a 7 beer a night kind of guy. I want to have my one beer and I want to make it good. It's kind of like cigars for me. I want to smoke my good cigar. I don't want to smoke 5 cigars in a night. It's just not my style because, by the 3rd cigar, it's tough to taste anything at that point. And to your point of a high ABV, when you go 10.5+%, I mean, you don't want to be putting down a bomber of 10.5+% in a night because, it's not.
That's how you get Fat John.
That's how you get Fat John.
I mean, if I want to get after it, I'm gonna have like 1, maybe 2 beers, and then a couple of whiskeys. Beer just fills me up too much.
I hear that. And the nice thing is I can have 3 whiskeys to 1 beer in terms of calorie payoff. Not that it's a calorie game, but it's a calorie game.
But it is.
So how's our audience doing on Facebook and Cigar Chat, Trippy? We got any questions, comments, feedback?
We don't have any questions or comments, really. Bob Langmaid says we're right about short Churchill for this thing.
Nice.
And he's also very surprised that this stout is only 5%.
That's wild, especially for an oatmeal stout.
Yeah, it's just really surprising, and it doesn't. A lot of times when the ABV is that low, you end up with a ton of sweetness up front, and this doesn't have a lot of sweetness at all. It's a very dry oatmeal stout.
I can dig it. I want to remind our audience that this is, of course, Goat Week. What is Goat Week, you say? Well, Goat Week is the greatest of all time, and instead of holding on to those great cigars that you're saving for a special occasion, this is the special occasion right now this week, started by On Fawn, who is our resident Lancero Nation leader, and now employee of Drew Estate. But the tradition continues. It's been going on for a number of years. So really the tradition is this week, bust out those greatest of all times, smoke them, post them at cigarfederation.com with a little comment of what you're smoking and why you're smoking it and what you're holding on to it. But smoke it this week. Greatest of all times. Do it now.
Have you smoked any goats this week?
Not only have I smoked some goats this week, I kind of prefaced the week by
going to Cuba?
Yeah, I went to Cuba and I smoked some crazy, crazy stuff that I will probably never smoke again. I smoked some stuff from the 90s. I smoked some stuff that comes in a giant container that's worth, 300,000 euros. And there's no way I would have been able to get my hands on a cigar like that otherwise. I smoked a bunch of super limited stuff. I smoked some stuff that's not even released on the market, which was cool. So that's cool. I think I've got a crazy pre-embargo Cuban that's been waiting for the right moment. I think the right moment is this week. Unfortunately, because of where I got it from, I can't post pictures. So a lot of this stuff, I can smoke it, but I can't post pictures of some of this stuff because of where I got it. But I think it's from, I want to say 1939 or 1941.
Oh,
so it's
nice.
Probably got not very much to it anymore because the tobacco has just been aged for so long. But it'll be an interesting experience to smoke a cigar that's, crazy, crazy old.
Yeah, I've smoked a couple clear Havanas from the late 40s and early 50s, which if anybody doesn't know what a clear Havana is, I believe the term means that it's a cigar that was rolled in the U.S. using all Cuban tobacco. And a couple of those were actually machine mades, which was kind of interesting that back then they were making what we would now think of as a premium cigar with machines.
Wild.
And now, machines are just kind of looked down upon.
Yeah, handmade. Hecho a mano. That's the only way to do it.
Hecho a mano.
Now, what else have you been smoking for Goat Week so far? Or what do you have queued up for Goat Week?
Well, so the stuff I started off with a Tatuaje RC 233, which is the enormous Salomon. It's like...
Is that from 2009?
It was from 2009.
Crazy.
That was fantastic. I've smoked those back then, but I haven't had one since 2010 probably.
Wow.
And man, that was just such a good cigar. And then the other one that I went for, which was kind of a joke Goat Week thing, was in 2006, I was on now defunct clubstogie.com, and for some reason, I don't remember how it happened, but somebody sent me a Acid Extraordinary Larry.
No, that's
and
right.
I looked at it and thought, I'm never going to smoke this thing. It's a 6x60, which I'm just not a fan of. It's an acid, which I'm generally not a fan of. And it just kind of hung around my humidor. And once I would keep it in a bag with a Bovetta.
Yep.
So it didn't,
mingle.
And then eventually I started a infused humidor. And so it's been sitting in there for 5 years. And I just figured this is the perfect week to finally smoke that 11-year-old acid. And it lost almost all of the acid qualities except for some bitterness. It was really weird.
Interesting.
But it was actually, I think it was actually a pretty good cigar. It burned really well, real exceptional burn. No
I would think
touch-ups.
It
was just smooth as can be.
Well, I mean, that's what Goat Week's all about, is stop hanging on to those cigars you've had for umpteen years and smoke them. Smoke them if you got them. Just want to remind our audience you're tuning to Sharing Our Pairings, episode 103, broadcast live around the world, pick up on the Armed Forces Radio Network. Tonight is Spotlight on Blackworks Studio, which is Black Label Trading Company. We're pairing beers and the Killer Bee, which is delicious. Of course, Sharing Our Pairings is brought to you by Gurkha Cigars. Talk to your local B&M. They'll hook you up. They'll find the Gurkha that's right for you. There's a lot of Gurkhas out there. They've got one that's right for you. Check it out. Talk to your B&M. Support your local B&M, because in this day and age, you got to support your local B&M. We are doing some beer tastings, and I'm just about ready to move on to beer number dose, I think, for tonight.
I think that's a great idea.
Now, hopefully this one's going to be interesting because it's from one of these quote-unquote Phantom Brewery, which is the sort of polite, non-racist way to say Phantom Brewery. I'm not going to use the other word because I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. But this is the Chipotle Porter from Mikkeller Brewery, and Mikkeller, like I said, is a Phantom Brewery, so just like some boutique cigar manufacturers, they don't have a facility. They come up with a blend, a brand, they send it off to another distillery or brewery, and the brewery makes it up for them, and then they package it and ship it out, which is kind of a cool concept. We've featured Evil Twin on the show before, and Evil Twin's kind of the same concept, where they go to different breweries and have their beers made there.
They've got a story with Mikkeller, you know.
Oh yeah, tell me the story.
So Evil Twin is named because it's the evil twin of Mikkeller. They're two brothers who lived in Europe. I'm not sure exactly where. It was like Sweden or Denmark.
Copenhagen.
That sounds about right. And they both brewed beer, and somehow they developed some animosity. And one decided to move to New York and start Evil Twin, and the other one started Mikkeller.
Interesting. Little bit of beer history right there.
Yeah. Very
cool. So, as you say, so this the Mikkeller Brewing Company was started by Mikkel Borg Bjergse in 2006, just by experimenting as a home brewery in his kitchen in Copenhagen. And like I said, he operates as a Phantom Brewery. Their mission statement is to brew beer that challenges the concept of good beer and moves people. We do this by using the best ingredients and work with the most talented and creative minds around the world. Sounds like a lot of boutique cigar manufacturers to me. Their goal is to make quality beers a serious alternative to wine and champagne while having gourmet food. I can dig it. That's a good mission statement to me. I'm going to hold up the bottle here of the Chipotle Porter. It's kind of got a cool, I don't know what the gun's supposed to symbolize. You know, maybe the gun is the Chipotle. But on the back, it's got 1% Chipotle chili as one of the ingredients, so that's kind of interesting. And hold it up here. It poured nice. It has a nice thickness to it. I don't have a lot of specs on the beer because they didn't have a lot of specs in the beer. But that's a pretty thick porter with a nice...
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's a serious...
That's moving into stout country.
That's moving into stout country. 6.6% ABV. Oh, and you can definitely... you can definitely smell the chili off of that. That is what I would definitely describe as a Mexican hot chocolate, where I get that nice chocolate, get a nice little bit of chili there, which is not overpowering. I'm going to enjoy the heck out of this and let you talk about your second beer of the night.
All right. And I just checked, and I don't know if I didn't realize it before or what, but they are actually identical twins.
Crazy.
Hepe and Mikkel. So my final beer is a beer that I really like. I've had it a few times. Called Tough Love from Crux Brewing. It's from their Banished series. So the Banished series is what they call barrel aging. Rather than saying we're barrel aging this beer, they say this beer has been banished to whiskey barrels. And this is their barrel-aged Russian Imperial Stout.
Oh, very.
Oh, yeah. So an interesting thing about this beer that I was complaining to John about at the beginning is they make it an adventure to get into these bottles. So they have, as you can see here, they have the wax seal. So you have to kind of chip through that wax to get to the cap, pop the cap off, and there's a cork in there. So they really want to make sure that there's no air leaks or anything.
And there's a bottle cap too, right?
Yeah, and there's a bottle cap as well. These are really meant to be aged as long as you can stand. Right, this is the 2016 series, but I've got a couple more bottles that are cellared, if you will. It is 70 IBUs, and it clocks in at 11.5% ABV.
Wowzers.
Yeah, but it comes in a little bottle, which I appreciate.
Yay!
A nice 12-ounce bottle, which is kind of perfect for, 2 glasses of an 11.5 beer.
Or 1 Canadian glass. What does that bad boy run you?
This one's kind of expensive. They're between 12 and 15. Usually, they're easy to find for about $12.99 a bottle.
I mean, it's probably on par with a lot of barrel-aged stuff. I do like the fact that it comes in the smaller bottle because, as we've already talked about, getting a bomber at that size, it's kind of a waste. You're not going to drink the whole thing. At least you probably shouldn't drink the whole thing in one session.
If you do drink the whole thing in one night, you're gonna not enjoy it as much near the end. You're just gonna be drinking it.
Yeah, you're just gonna be drinking it. So this Chipotle porter, it's nice. It's funky. It's got a lot of that nice spice that I like in hot foods, where the spice is kind of a background note, and then you drink it, you get chocolate, you get that nice creamy porter. It's very refreshing, and then that spice just kind of stays with you, and it's balanced. It's not overpowering my palate, but it's just kind of sitting on the back of my tongue, a little bit of spice, just kind of burning away. And it's a nice counterpoint to the cigar because, and this is what I'm looking for when I'm doing a pairing, is there's this really nice sweetness, probably from the Habano wrapper on this Green Hornet. And that sweetness is amplified by that spice. So the spice that I was getting off the cigar is now being pushed to the background because that chipotle spice, the chili spice from this beer is really taking the forefront for spice, but it's really offset by the creaminess of the cigar. And great combination. I'm really, really digging it, actually.
Awesome. So I was just reading the back of the bottle here, and I had looked at their website to kind of make my notes. And they didn't give a great description of the beer. They just kind of said this is a Russian Imperial Stout using roasted malts that we age in Kentucky whiskey barrels.
Okay.
But on here it actually says it's an Imperial Stout brewed with blackstrap molasses and spices, which is then aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels. And it actually notes that they use oak smoked wheat and malted rye in addition to the roasted malt. Wow. Which it's really velvety. Like, it's got that consistency that I just love in a stout, where it's kind of viscous and oily, and it's just rich. It's not super sweet. It's not super bitter. It's just rich. It's got just enough sweetness, just enough bitterness, and a really nice bourbon character right on the finish.
Are you getting a lot of the smoky character? Because it's interesting that you're using so many smoked grains in there. You'd think that would really...
Yeah, there's definitely some smoke influence here. I think the smoke... I find that smoke in a beer really kind of gets overrun by the smoke from a cigar because you're already tasting so much smoke.
Yeah.
But I can pick it up just a little bit. Not as much as I'd like. And not as much as I probably would if I wasn't smoking a cigar. Which is kind of a detriment to the pairing.
Well, I'm getting to the halfway point-ish of the Green Hornet, and it's nice. Like I said, it's got a really nice creamy aspect to it. There is some spiciness, although it was subtle spiciness, so it really doesn't compete with that chipotle, that chili that's in this beer. But this cigar is probably a couple steps down from the typical strength level that I get with a lot of Blackwork stuff, because James likes to smoke at the sort of medium plus full end of the spectrum, and I love that. This is probably a lot more approachable than a lot of the Blackwork stuff in terms of, I would put this at medium plus at most.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it, especially with the Candela piece, that makes it interesting, it makes it different, and it makes it very approachable, I think, for the average smoker at a size that's, reasonable in size.
Yeah, and I would actually say that it starts off very full-bodied. When you light the Candela, Jason Raybuck asked if we notice anything from the Candela. So the Candela is really only at the foot, and then there's the detail on the cap here, but you don't really taste that. But when you first light it, you really taste that grassy, earthy flavor from the Candela. And then there's a ton of spice right at the beginning that really fades away as you get through the first third, and until it's kind of a background flavor.
I would challenge I do think that having the Candela at the cap does play into it, but it's a very subtle note. And I think when we talk about Candelas for me are anything but subtle. Like, they're, when I think Candela, I think of chewing on grass from a freshly mowed lawn with some dirt. And that to me is what Candela is. So I think there is some of that vegetal contribution to the cigar, but because it's in such small quantities of the cap, you're just getting hints of that add to the complexity of the cigar. So, it's kind of very Candela light minus, but it adds to the flavor for sure. I mean, it's unlike anything else for sure.
And actually, I think you do kind of get a little bit on the palate just from having it in your mouth. I do notice, you're right, a little bit of like kind of bitter grassiness, which I kind of like, because like I like that from beers, so I think it translates well for my palate.
Yeah.
Some people may not like it, but that's their problem.
Thanks for the question, Jason. Appreciate it. Anybody else from Cigar Federation commenting? Anyone else from Facebook dropping any notes?
So Jeff Madre says that he likes my feng shui in the background. So these are actually, both of these pictures, the one over here is of the Padron farm, and the one over here is a tree that's right in front of the farm. So you can see the field in the background there a little bit. It's kind of dark, so you can't really see it too well.
Were those taken when you're down at Pure Sabor?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Padron was just, it was cool to visit Padron because they're surprisingly humble. I know I talked about that a lot in my article and when we did Cigar Chat, but it was just surprising that they don't seem to, they're not boisterous at all about the cigars they make. They just make cigars.
I would say that is probably true of a lot of cigar manufacturers. Pivoting to Black Label Trading Company, James is very much that way. He's a very soft-spoken, quiet guy who kind of lets his cigars talk for him. Just a super chill guy. If you've ever seen the interview with the IPCPR with James, it kind of strains the capacity of our microphone because he is so soft-spoken. Just, super zen, super chill. And I think that's probably reflected in his cigars. You smoke them, you chill out, you enjoy them. And, I really do think that's one of those things where the cigars kind of talk for him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He's a unique guy, but he's very understated.
And Angela, his wife, is a sweetheart.
She sure is.
So this Chipotle Porter is a big win for me. I would say, even if I had other beers to pair tonight, which I don't, I think this Chipotle Porter would probably be the winner for me because it's different, because it's interesting, because it kind of pushes the envelope of pairing with the spiciness. And I've had spicy beers before on the show, and I've had spicy beers by themselves. And I find oftentimes the spiciness is just way overstated. They end up putting in way too much spice. And, I'm sure as a brewer, it's really tough to balance that out with the other ingredients that are going into your beer. But in this case, it is exactly what I want out of a spicy beer, where the spice is an accent like hot food, where it's not taking over my palate, it's not taking over the other flavors that are there. It's a nice accent flavor, and with this cigar, it makes for a really interesting combination.
Yeah, that sounds like exactly what you want from a spicy beer. I've had some spicy beers that are just overpowering with spice, where it's like, it's that feeling where you put too much hot sauce on your burrito or whatever, or like maybe you ate a piece of white chocolate with some scorpion pepper in it, and it's just, you don't taste.
So you were down on Cigar Safari.
Yeah. You don't taste like the food. All you taste is heat, and I've had that with some beers. But it's nice when it's got a little bit of spice and it's there and noticeable, but it doesn't overpower you at all.
So we haven't really ever done ratings on the show, but I'm going to change that tonight because that's what we do here on Sharing Our Pairings. We change it up. We can do whatever we want. It's our show. So I think for the first pairing, I would probably rate it like a 79-80. It's all right. It's a beer and a cigar. It doesn't break any mold. It doesn't push any envelopes. It's not particularly interesting. It's just a beer and a cigar. And again, no disrespect to Rogue because they have a lot of beers that I really like. This just happens to be one that just doesn't work out for me for pairing. How was your first pairing of the night?
The first pairing of the night, I would give 7.5, 8. It's a good pairing. So actually, I don't know. The pairings here are kind of contrasting. They're both stouts. Yeah. But the first one, you're really going to get a little more of this from the cigar, and the flavor of the beer is going to be secondary. Where you're still going to be picking up all of the notes from the cigar, and it's a little stronger than the beer. So the beer adds to the cigar, but the cigar itself doesn't really add to the beer, I would say. Yeah, 7.5, I would say.
Okay. But it sounded like on its own, that beer was a huge win. Like just drinking it by itself.
Yeah, and super drinkable and kind of refreshing and smooth for a stout. Just all around pleasant stout.
So for me, the second pairing of the night, like I said, definitely the winner. I'd probably rate that an 89.90, 8.99 out of 10. Solid beer. More an interesting combination. In fact, I think this is one of those rare moments where I think I'd probably enjoy the beer a lot more paired than on its own, because I think on its own, the spiciness might get a little old after a while, not be that interesting, but paired with a cigar, it brings out a lot more in the cigar and it brings a lot more out of the beer. And together, it's a better combination than, by itself. The cigar, of course, by itself, I could smoke all day long. And it looks like we lost Trippy there, so bear with us a second. We're going to get him right back. Bringing Trippy back into the show here.
Sorry about that.
It's all good. Technical issues abound occasionally here on sharing our pairings, but fortunately with the new system, easy to recover.
Yeah, it is surprisingly easy, isn't it? So did you finish talking about your second pairing there?
Yeah, I was just saying that the Green Hornet is a cigar that I've definitely enjoyed on its own. I've smoked quite a few of these already, but in terms of the beer, I think the beer does a great job of working in concert with the cigar to provide a more interesting mix. And I was saying that while I enjoy the cigar on its own, I'm not sure how to enjoy the beer on its own, because that spicy component would kind of get older after a while. I mean, halfway through the beer, I'd be like, I get it, it's a spicy beer, and I'm kind of tired of it, but it's more interesting paired with a cigar because, they play off of each other nicely and makes the beer experience a little bit better for me.
Sure. So my second pairing, I think I would give an 8.5. It's a great pairing. The cigar detracts from the beer just a little bit because you don't get those smoky notes coming through from the whiskey and the smoked malts. But the strength of the beer doesn't really overpower the cigar at all. So you really, they just play off each other really well.
Fair enough. So, of course, we're going to have back to our regular rotation. We don't have a cigar chat this week, unfortunately. This Thursday will be cigar chat, missing a night on Thursday, which... Sorry for that, but we're working back into our cigar chat schedule to get our guests back lined up. So Tripp has been working hard.
We do have the rest of the month booked up, which is good.
Yeah, so if you aren't familiar, you can go on to cigarfederation.com, go to our events section. Next Wednesday, of course, we will have another Sharing Our Pairings, but on Thursday, we will have a cigar chat with Mombacho Cigars. We're going to have Claudio Segroy from Mombacho Cigars on Thursday night, regular time of 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. That'll be a good one. And then we just posted up tonight Phil Zangi from Debonair Cigars.
No, the week after. So next week we've got Claudio. The following week we've got John Huber.
Oh, nice.
And then Phil Zangi from Debonair is the last week of the month.
Now, if I'm following my calendar events here carefully, I think John's going to be on Tuesday as opposed to Thursday. Is that correct?
Yes. John's going to be on not next Tuesday, but the following.
So 2 weeks from today, sort of 12 days from today is a more accurate way of describing it. Yeah. But you can check that on our event schedule. Of course, post that on Facebook. We'll post that on YouTube. But you can go to cigarfederation.com, check out the event section. And, of course, we will put that up on our podcast. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to our podcast. Whoever is out there listening, we appreciate that tuning in. Thanks to all our Armed Forces Radio Network listeners who are out there in the world. You guys are built to do things we are not built to do. As we sit here and drink beer and smoke cigars, we appreciate you protecting our freedoms. Appreciate your service. Hopefully you are staying safe and have a fantastic weekend. And we'll be back next week with another Sharing Our Pairings. As we always say on Sharing Our Pairings, drink better, but drink less. So, Yeah, I kind of erred with the first beer pairing. It was more of a curiosity, I think, for me to pair that Rogue. I just saw it in my lineup, and I thought it'd be interesting to pair that. And I've never had it before, so completely blind on my part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how my first pairing was too. It was just totally blind. It was just like, oh, this sounds like a good stout. I think I'll try that out. But that one turned out pretty good. Not fantastic, but pretty good. But this Tough Love, I can't get enough of it.
It sounds tasty. Actually, both of them sound tasty. I like the idea of an oatmeal stout that's sessionable like a Guinness. I mean, normally, when I think oatmeal stouts, like a starting point for an oatmeal stout is 8.5%, which it's kind of nice to have an oatmeal stout that's not that boozy per se.
Yeah, this feels like an oatmeal stout that I could go out and have dinner and then have a couple beers at the bar and go home and feel fine.
Yeah, because essentially you could have two of those oatmeal stouts and be in less ABV than the Imperial.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's just smooth drinking. I think this might be kind of my new when I'm feeling like a stout that I just want a beer while I'm watching TV. This is kind of the perfect stout for me.
It's like a springtime stout instead of like a fall time stout where you want something super heavy and thick and crazy.
That's the perfect way to phrase it.
Nice.
Springtime stout.
Springtime stout.
I'm going to trademark that.
Nice. I was, of course, complaining earlier in the week because, and this is a no spoiler show in case you're worried before I drop some. The season finale of The Walking Dead was on the weekend, and we were kind of talking about that because there's kind of two shows out, The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones, and I don't know why people do this, but it drives me absolutely up the wall that literally 15 minutes after the show airs, people are on Facebook just blah, blah, blah with the spoilers. People are on Twitter, blah, blah, blah with the spoilers.
Yeah.
And,
like that post that's just like, I can't believe Negan blew up the world. Mm-hmm. And you're just scrolling through your feed and you're like, oh, no.
So I went to CNN.com, and CNN had a major spoiler in the title of one of their articles, which, I mean, I can't avoid that. I've seen it already, so now part of the plot line's already ruined for me. And then, as you said, I was scrolling down my Facebook feed, and someone was like, blah, 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 I can't believe blah, blah, blah. And it's like, guy, seriously, why would you put, like, your Facebook feed is public to your 750 other friends, and many of them probably haven't seen the show. So you were mentioning that you've kind of adopted a different strategy than me of waiting.
So our strategy is no matter how late we have to stay up, we just watch Walking Dead on Sunday night. And my wife looks at Facebook, and I'm always like, don't look. Just do your business stuff. Don't just look through your feed. Yep. And she's gotten bitten by that once or twice. But I don't even touch social media after like 6 p.m. East or Pacific.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's going to be a spoiler somewhere that's going to make me angry.
It's just so, I don't know. I mean, you can talk about the show non-spoilerish in your initial post and then have a discussion underneath that, because it's easy enough to ignore or scroll past the discussion. But when you're, one sentence is in the new big bold font on Facebook, it's really tough to avoid that. And like I said, it's very disappointing when you're engaged in a show, especially when you're, major plot points are being leaked. It's just so disheartening. Twitter is easy enough for me to avoid because I just don't open Twitter on Mondays. But CNN, Facebook, I mean, those are both, CNN's kind of a business tool, and so is Facebook. So it's really tough to ignore a big fat spoiler right in my face.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't post spoilers, people, please.
Don't post spoilers. And of course, we're almost going to be getting into Game of Thrones time, because I think the new season airs at the end of June or beginning of July, something like that.
I think it's the end of June, I believe.
Yeah, like June 29th or something like that. So it'll be just
something
enough
like
time. Just before the IPCPR, we'll be getting into it, and I think I'm going to have to adopt the strategy of just watching it on Sunday night, because it's just going to piss me off if I catch a spoiler on Monday.
Yeah. So if just a tip, if anyone out there has HBO Go and that's how you watch it, and you don't watch it until Monday morning or something, So as soon as the episode starts in your country, it's available on HBO Go.
Interesting.
So for me, it's on at, I think, 10 p.m. Eastern. So 7:01, I can watch the new episode of Game of Thrones.
Nice.
Which is perfect.
This Green Hornet's a good cigar. I mean, I'm actually getting a lot more of that candela now that I'm past the halfway point. I think it's starting to play a lot more into it, and I'm getting a lot more of that grassy note as I finish. But I mean, I've been raging on these. I think I got a 10-pack accidentally because I think I think I got a 10-pack of the Green Hornets and a 5-pack of the Killer Bees. And they do smoke differently. I do find that the Killer Bee, being a smaller vitola, it does the candela maybe plays a bigger part in the overall taste factor than the Green Hornet.
The Killer Bee doesn't actually have candela. It's got, I think, Habano or maybe Connecticut instead in place of the candela. And then the new one that came out, that's the event exclusive, the Cato. That one has the candela wrapper going all the way up.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, is it striped like the Green Hornet, or is it just a solid wrapper going all the way up?
It's striped. So it looks a lot like the Green Hornet. I think it's a little longer. It might be bigger ring gauge.
Yeah.
But then, where you've got the wrapper seam as it spirals around, there's just a little bit of the candela sticking out because it's got a double wrapper. Interesting.
Very cool, though. Like I said, I like the idea that it kind of pushes the envelope of, I've never seen you talk about barber poles, but it's not like a barber pole, at least not the Killer Bee or the Green Hornet. It's implemented in certain strategic places to adjust the flavor profile subtly enough, and I like that.
Yeah, I think it works really well.
In fact, it kind of reminds me of the KFC, where the KFC has the little bit of KFC leaf in the cap just to adjust the flavor, so it's not overpowering, but it just adds something to every puff.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how I feel about the cap on this one, because you definitely get some of that candela character in there.
Good cigar.
Great cigar.
And if you want to find out more about Black Label Trading Company, you can go to the website, blacklabeltradingcompany.com, or just Google Black Label Trading Company, and they'll come up first hit for you on Google, because Google is the end-all, be-all for search engines.
Yep.
And I don't know what we're going to do for next Wednesday, but I feel like we should switch it back to whiskey.
That's a good idea.
We've been doing a few beer shows. I'm not sure what we're going to do for cigars, but there's a lot of cigars out there, a lot of new releases I'm still making my way through. And I got to start posting some reviews, because I think I've got 5 reviews done now in my backlog that I just need to sit down and type out. I've got the videos done. I've got the audio done. I just haven't done the typing. So there'll be some new reviews coming out in the next few weeks for sure.
Yeah, I've got one in my backlog that I've mostly written the review. I just need to kind of edit it and put the pictures in, and it'll be done. But I got to get on that reviewing thing.
Got to get on it. So we will be back at our regular scheduled time of 8 p.m. Eastern Standard next Wednesday. Like we said, we'll have Mombacho on next Thursday with Claudio Segura. That'll be a good show. Hopefully Logan brings his A game. Claudio's always a good time. I've taken a few tours now of his factory, and you've taken a tour a couple times of his factory.
Times.
One of the most beautiful factories in
it's
the
amazing.
world. It's incredible. It's not a cigar factory. It's an estate that happens to have a cigar factory in it, and it's beautiful. So if you ever have the time to go to Granada, if you're in Nicaragua, make the time to go through and check out the factory. It's definitely worth the visit. And check out Charlie's, the greatest German food in all of Nicaragua.
In all of Nicaragua.
All in Nicaragua. Have a boot. It's a good time. It's delicious. Have the rodent.
And if you've got any questions for Claudio, post them up on the Facebook. You can ask me on Twitter at Trippopolis with 2 P's, Trippopolis. Or you can go to cigarfederation.com and comment on the post there.
Many different ways to get your questions in. We'll definitely appreciate your questions for tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. But as we were saying, sharing our pairings, we want you to drink better, but drink less.